Welcome to the Content Podcast, conversations with Silicon Valley's creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SVCreates. This episode of the Content Magazine podcast is brought to you by Bonfire, a Silicon Valley digital agency building elevated websites for ambitious brands. Find out more about Bonfire at bonfire.com.
Hello, this is Scott.
Today we talk with Scott Fulton. He's the Special Projects Manager with San Jose Jazz. Hey Scott, how you doing? This is Daniel.
Daniel, hey, good to hear from you.
Yeah, great talking to you. I know we see each other every once in a while because you're always working on some projects there at our offices where SVCreates, Content Magazine, and San Jose Jazz is. So
I'm sure you probably get annoyed by the drilling and hammering sounds that have been in the office pretty regularly lately.
No, I love it. And that's so, I mean, your official title is the Special Projects Manager for San Jose Jazz.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's some of the things you've been doing is a special project called the Break Room, which I want to get into, and that's some of the noise that you've been making recently.
Yeah.
But what does that mean as being the Special Projects Manager for San Jose Jazz?
It's kind of been a placeholder title that really hasn't been properly expanded for many years. You know, it's just something that it's on my card that way, and I just don't really have a good way to describe all the different aspects of my involvement with San Jose Jazz in a way that's easy for people to digest. You know, because I do the Break Room. I manage the Boombox project. I book lots of shows on San Jose Jazz's behalf, like little one-off shows. You know, when people need a band for a little house party get together or some corporate event. I'm the guy who does that. But I also write grants, and I also manage the high school all-star big band and the U19s combo, and I manage the summer camp too. So I do a whole variety of different things.
Well, that's interesting because I didn't know that I knew that you did the Boombox and now the Break Room. Yeah. And I kind of had wind that you wrote, did some grant stuff, but I didn't know about with some doing the bookings and also the high school. And that's a lot of stuff. You're up to a lot of things.
Yeah. I just, over my years with San Jose Jazz, it's just kind of expanded the resume of things that I'm in charge of. I started with the organization doing transportation for Summerfest. So I was just in charge of the logistics for the artists and that sort of thing. But
and when was that? When did you start doing that?
That was 2013, all the way 8 years ago. Wow. Time has just flown by on that.
That's before you were married, before you had children.
Oh yeah, all of that. I was new back to San Jose. I grew up along the peninsula and in the South Bay, but I had been gone for like 20 years. And
really? Where were you?
My first foray was to Seattle and then Tacoma for a little while, and then I moved down to LA to seek my fortune. And I went to music school down there, and I was a gigging musician. Simultaneously. And I did that for about 10 years. And then I was just totally sick of LA. LA is not, it's a great place to visit, but I just completely fell out of love with living there. So I wanted to move back, be closer to family. And serendipitously, my wife got into grad school at San Jose State, amongst a few other places, but we kind of chose together San Jose would be perfect because, that'll get me back to my roots. And then off we went.
Yeah, that's cool. So then now, you're a musician as well as do audio tech and stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of a retired musician, semi-retired musician.
Yeah. What do you play? What's your instrument of choice?
Primarily a bass player. I started playing bass when I was like,
see that. You got that bass player vibe.
Yeah, I got that bass face. Know how to rock the funk.
That's cool.
I dabble on the guitar, I dabble on the keys, but primarily bass. That's what I was, when I was a gigging musician, that's always what I showed up with.
Yeah. So, dude, like the upright bass, was that kind of did you do that too? Kind of more
I
jazz?
never did upright bass, and I always wanted to, but I never got into it for a few reasons. The first is because I learned by rote to begin with,
Okay.
and bought all my own instruments, and basses are incredibly expensive, uh,
Yeah.
upright basses, I should say. And the other reason is that I'm stubbornly left-handed, and upright basses are
Okay.
asymmetrical. So if you restring them lefty, they don't sound the same. They don't sound as good. They don't have the same kind of
Huh.
sustain and that sort of
Wow.
thing. And I've only ever seen one left-handed upright bass in my entire life, and it was $40,000. So that
Okay.
was a
Yeah.
no-go.
Yeah. Really, that's a lot of gigs to make that up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So you can't just do the Hendrix thing and just learn to play it backwards or whatever, or whatever you.
Not on an upright. I mean, that's definitely how I started when it came to actually playing bass and playing guitar. Is I would just grab my friends' instruments and just try to noodle and figure out how to do it. And
Yeah.
eventually, I got together enough money to buy my own, and off I went.
Yeah. So does that mean like the upright bass players, the majority of them, that if they are left-handed, then they just learn to play right, or do they
Yeah,
stand on the other side and learn to play it kind of backwards?
I haven't seen that. I've run into some lefty, lefty by nature, but learn how to play
Hmm.
the upright and the electric, both right-handed.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier because when you're first starting out, your brain is very flexible as to
Yeah.
it's, and you don't know the techniques yet. So
Yeah.
it's not too much of a hindrance to just learn how to play right-handed. Um,
Yeah.
my disadvantage was I had zero technique when I started. I was literally just noodling around. It was only by accident that I really decided to get a left-handed instrument that was strung
Hmm.
left-handed, because I could have definitely learned to just play right-handed instruments upside down, a
Yeah.
la Jimi Hendrix as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely encourage lefties that I run into who are just starting out. I'm like, put down that lefty instrument and pick up a right-handed one. You'll have so many more options
Huh.
when you
Interesting.
actually get going. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then you were doing that back to San Jose
sure.
from LA, which I feel like you totally have more of a Northern California vibe. Your
Yeah.
personality and temperament seems to be a little bit more mellow and not
Yeah.
into the glitz and the glam. And I don't think you have any Botox yet. Is that or collagen injections or anything like that, right?
That's my little secret, actually. I don't want to go on record.
So you're back, and so you helped out. You started out with doing the transportation. So that's like picking up the musicians from the airport, taking them to the hotels, bringing them around to different gigs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And then
it's
how?
handling
Yeah,
all the logistics for that too. The transportation team is about 10 volunteers strong, with people
hmm,
that have just been doing it forever and really enjoy it. They get to talk with the musicians on the rides.
yeah,
If you manage properly, they get to pick up the musicians that they're most interested in, and
yeah,
get to have these little, you know, 10-minute conversations on the way to the hotel, unless it's SFO, and then they get to have an hour-long conversation. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's just managing all those logistics. And, to this day, I think in terms of jobs at the actual festival, I think it's probably the hardest, if not one of the hardest, jobs at the festival, because it's nonstop. I mean, your phone
oh
is
yeah,
ringing. You get 200, literally 200 calls a day
yeah,
from different
yeah,
artists who need various things. And a lot of times you're the only contact that they have. So you end up being the middleman for a lot of other conversations, production
sure,
conversations, craft service, all that kind of stuff. And you always have to be on, you always have to be nice. And, I'm
yeah,
during that time, you sleep like 2 or 3 hours a night for, 4 or 5 days in a row before it's all over.
yeah, yeah,
Managing hundreds and hundreds of rides. So yeah, it's very, very taxing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
That's
yeah,
that's
I think I did that for 3 years, even when I was getting more responsibility within the organization. At one point, I just had to be like, "That's it, I'm done. I have,
yeah.
I have to
Too
pass
many
this.
other
I have to
things.
pass the
Yeah,
torch." Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. And then, so then you being there, now I know that the San Jose boombox, if I remember correctly, you were kind of part of the conceptual, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were part of the conceptual idea and even like writing the grant for that, right? And
Yeah.
even doing the schematics of like, how is this door going to be cut into the side of a
Yeah.
bobcat or whatever they call it? What do they call it? Is that the name of the truck? What's they call those trucks?
Oh,
Bobcat? No.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, it's what the boombox is basically just a 25-foot box truck that was donated to us from uh, SF Jazz. It was kind of serendipitous because somewhere along the line when I was getting to know Brendan, I was telling him about these like guerrilla shows we used to do down in LA where we would just rent a flatbed truck and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
rent a generator and then go out someplace where we knew the cops weren't going to bug us, and we would just invite a whole bunch of people and just do these guerrilla shows.
Yeah.
And he was really interested in that idea. And so he's like, what if we could do something like that here? And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it. Especially because San Jose Jazz has a lot of contacts with the city, so we can pull permits a lot more easily than I could have, just as an individual down in LA.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started doing these shows like at St. James Park and Plaza de Cesar Chavez, where we were literally just doing that. We were getting a rental flatbed truck and plugging into like a light post and just inviting a band and getting the music going, like lunchtime
Yeah. Yeah.
pop up shows. And it started to get a little bit of traction. So when this box truck became available, Brendan and I kind of looked at each other. It was like, is this the moment? Is this where we try to do a mobile stage?
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, like a box truck isn't perfectly suited to
Sure.
to do these types of things. I mean, first of all, it's like very contained. It's meant for moving. It's not meant for live
Yeah.
performance in any kind of way. It was never
Yeah.
envisioned in that kind of way. So yeah, we needed to get a fairly hefty grant to make the retrofit happen.
Yeah.
And luckily, just around that time, SVCreates had I forget the name of the grant that they had, but it was a cool opportunity where you would come up with an original concept, something that ideally hadn't been done before, that was kind of innovative.
Yeah. It was probably our X factor,
X
I
Factor,
think.
yes, that was
Yeah.
it. It was
Yeah.
the X Factor, exactly.
Yeah.
You meet with a kind of a grant writing coach who can help you refine the idea on location if your idea is chosen
Hmm.
in consecutive rounds and that sort of thing. And then finally, the best like top 10 ideas you present live. At the stage at the Mexican Heritage
Yeah.
Plaza
Yeah.
over there. So I presented that. I presented a PowerPoint presentation, and I talked all about the potential as I saw it for a mobile stage. And I got first place, got the seed money for the
Yeah.
project. We immediately turned around and started the fabrication. I mean, like within weeks, we were we
Yeah.
were building out the stage on there, and we did our first show, I think maybe 4 months later in the summer of 2015.
Cool.
And
Wow.
we ended
Yeah.
up doing 10 shows that summer. The following year, we did 35.
Oh,
And
wow.
then the following year, we did 60. And
Wow.
we've been rocking about 60 shows a year ever since,
Dang. So
except
that's
for the
more than,
asterisk year of 2020, of course.
right. Yeah. That's more, it's 60 shows. So that's more than one a week. I mean, 52
Oh, yeah.
weeks. Yeah. So that's
Well,
crazy.
also you have to take into account that outdoor music season really only runs from April
Yeah.
until about October.
Yeah.
So we have this quote unquote hibernation period where we don't do any shows, and we basically just fix the truck
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
takes
Sure.
so
Repair
much
it.
abuse.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got to like replace any sound equipment that gets broken, any
Yeah.
cabling, especially because we do a lot of shows where the ground is dirt beneath our feet. So
Yeah.
those cables get wrecked. but
Yeah.
just engine trouble. It's a 2000, so it's seen some miles, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
suspension and the lift gate needs work and blah 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 blah. It just
Yeah,
goes
because that's
on
because
and
the
on.
side of it you turned into it's a stage. It opens up, and you
Yes.
can actually stand out on it like a stage. I mean, what you need, because if you got
Yeah.
the drums, if you got a band in there, you need the space.
Yeah.
What was that like, engineering that aspect?
Well, I came up with the basic concept for it. I kind of just did some schematic drawings, just some bird's eye angles, and then just some conceptual drawings,
Hmm.
and then from there we took it over to Method 42,
Yeah, yeah,
who's like the local nonprofits favorites for creating cool stuff. They pretty much do everything
yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of fabrication, and we said, hey, here's the idea, what can we do here? And so they were able to design, from my schematics, they were able to design a retractable stage that's just one side of the box, um,
Yeah,
comes down at a 90-degree angle, and they designed some legs for it. And it's gone through several iterations. There's certain
sure.
things that worked very well from the beginning that we still use, and other things that needed to be redesigned. And that's just all part of the learning process of the fact that we had never done anything like that before. They had never done anything like that before. So,
Yeah,
it took a
that's cool.
while to get tight. And now I think we're at a point where we've got most things figured out. And we've done so many shows. We have a good idea where the boombox is a good idea, and where, either
Yeah,
something smaller or something bigger might be required. And
yeah. What kind of slope or you can't park it on, so
yeah,
that the drummer
yeah.
doesn't slide out.
Well, not only that, but figuring out how to take the slope into account, and how to put the wheels up on
Legs.
risers and make sure that the
Yeah,
stage is flat, because it's almost guaranteed that you're not going to be on a flat surface.
yeah, yeah,
You're on a domed street where you need to put one wheel up on the sidewalk and another one out on the street, or you're on compacted dirt, or you're on grass, and some of the grass is muddy and some of the grass is hard. It's all these
yeah,
things, to take
yeah.
into account.
How
So
fun! And then you
yeah.
still have to mix the audio.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My crew and I, we kind of joke that, something unexpected happens at every single boombox gigs, and even
Sure.
with hundreds of gigs under our belts, the
Yeah.
amount of uncertainty uh, is just staggering even to this
Yeah.
day. And the most important thing that I look for in, say, new crew members is
Hmm.
their ability to stay calm under pressure and realize, like, so long as nobody
Yeah.
dies, everything is cool. It's just music.
Yeah. Being able to be adaptable and think on your feet. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's something that was an unexpected learning experience that happened that you still look back at and now you fondly laugh at, but
Oh
something that
man,
kind
where do I even start with
of.
that? A lot of it, there's so many things that revolve around power and generators,
Mm,
because
yeah.
there just isn't random access to power out in the universe, and that's something that you
Yeah.
always need to take into account. And something that we don't really like doing, but we end up doing a lot, is towing a generator behind.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
And that comes with so many pitfalls, because the amount of power we use a lot of power. So plugging into your standard outlet, even on a generator, you're probably going to pop a fuse. So
Yeah.
you gotta get a really robust 50 amp distributor that you can plug into
Yeah.
to just make sure that the power is consistent. But
Hmm.
also, you can't see behind you. So when you're driving this big box truck, so then
Yeah.
towing a generator behind, God forbid you actually have
Yeah.
to back up.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's fun to
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
say there have been times where I've sent the crew home and I've completely forgotten that I need to uh, get the generator hooked up to the
Oh
to
yeah.
the tow,
The trailer. Yeah.
yeah, to the trailer behind it. And or like one of my crew members actually was alone trying to hook the boombox up to a generator. And what he ended up doing is he had a GoPro camera on him, and he put it on the back bumper, and then on his iPhone he was
Oh, to watch
watching
it.
the
Yeah.
backup camera and
Yeah.
getting the hookup onto the generator, you
It's pretty
know.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
pretty
your,
smart.
that's a,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
inventive thinking to just get the job done.
Yeah.
Get it done when you have to get it done.
Well, and I
Yeah.
imagine too, when you run it off a generator, too, the generator is generating noise.
Oh
So
yeah.
then that must be kind of interesting too, trying to mix the band and make it
Yeah.
loud enough that you don't hear the energy. And yeah. So
There's a lot of things that we've taken into account over the years in that realm. Like we only rent Whisper diesel generators, which
hmm,
not my favorite in terms of the smell
yeah,
and the environmental impacts. I'm not
yeah,
into, but they're relatively quiet, so we put them about 20 feet back behind the actual box, and then the box
yeah,
itself is good at sound dampening.
yeah,
So we got
yeah,
to make sure that the generator is directly behind the stage, so that you have the stage between the generator and the audience.
yeah, yeah,
Things like that you learn over time.
yeah. Now, how did you get into doing, more of kind of like sound engineering and get into that aspect of the music
Yeah,
realm?
it was completely grassroots. It's just me being in high school and wanting to do shows with my friends and renting little rinky dink PA systems, or just hacking
Yeah,
together a system out of like, oh, what do I have? What do you have? What can we work together to make shows happen? And
yeah,
and slowly but surely started to do bigger and bigger shows. And just gaining that experience and working on progressively bigger boards and being trusted to
hmm,
do bigger events. And when I was down in LA, that was definitely a supplement to my gigging income, is
yeah,
getting these audio engineering, especially live engineering, but also doing some studio production work.
yeah.
Internships at recording studios when I was young. I did quite a few of those. Most of the time I was just making coffee, but
Right.
picking up tips and tricks along the way. And I actually, when I was in Washington, uh, I at the time when I moved up there, I was a projectionist. I was
Okay.
working in movie theaters, which definitely there's a crossover in terms of his skill set. I'm dating myself now, but this is still in the age of late 90s when it was still reel to reel, and so you
Oh,
need to be
yeah,
part of
yeah,
a union and union certified and all these types of things.
yeah.
And the Seattle union is really robust. At least it was at the time. Probably doesn't even exist anymore. But yeah, I got kind of sick of that, and I had saved up a little bit of money. So what I did was I just bought some hard drive recorders and a little mixer, and I started doing some remote recording work because in Tacoma, which is only like 45 minutes south of Seattle,
Hmm.
no high quality recording studios at all.
Oh,
And
okay.
my girlfriend at the time was going to the University of Puget Sound, which is in Tacoma, and they've got like a big music school there, and
Yeah,
there's all sorts of kids trying to record, and nobody knew what they were doing. So I said, business opportunity.
yeah.
And so I was recording bands with this little, I had basically had a van, and I had just a rack full of gear that I would just take out of the van, and I would hook up in people's houses or their
Yeah.
rehearsal spaces, or concert halls. I did quite a few recordings for their chamber orchestras and their choirs and things like that. That was like the bulk of the
Yeah.
work that I did. I also did some like very embarrassing training tapes for
Oh, yeah.
McDonald's up in
Sure. Okay.
Washington. It was like it leaves the worst taste in my mouth, but it was
Oh,
also
yeah.
what paid my rent. But there were
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
like training CDs so that managers could talk to their Spanish speaking employees, and it was all like Spanish McDonald's language.
Okay.
Oh God, it was just the
Hamburguesa.
worst. Exactly. Huevos líquidos. Things like
Oh,
that.
gross. I
Oh
don't think
God.
any language that you say
No.
liquid eggs
Yeah.
is gonna be.
Ugh. No, it was
Yeah.
awful. I was sitting there just cringing, as these vocal performance actors were saying
Yeah, yeah,
stuff. I was just like, oh God, this is the worst. I would hate to have to listen to
yeah.
these. I hated making them, but hey, it put a roof over my head. So
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so now, I mean, a more recent project, I guess in the last year, really. I mean, actually, I mean, to me, it seems just like a couple weeks, but that's because I haven't been to the office in a year, 16 months.
yeah,
Um, so the break room is what it's called now. So then there at the facility there at the 310 South First Street,
yeah.
you were part of this project and the idea to build a stage, a recording live venue. Well, it's called the break room. What exactly is the break room?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hate to make a short story long, but before we even moved into this space, it was
Yeah,
vacant for a decent amount of time.
yeah,
And I remember, anytime I came down to sofa, I'm just looking in the windows and going, God, that would be such a cool
right.
venue.
Yeah,
It was this big open space. You put a stage in the corner, and you could probably fit 150, 200 people in there.
yeah.
Um,
Which is a
so
big need for San Jose is to kind of have that small, medium, small venue space, right?
yeah, yeah, especially now, who knows what's going to happen with Stritch.
Yeah,
And the California is just way too big,
yeah,
so there's, local artists aren't going to get that gig. And you got the
yeah,
Continental, which is doing some really amazing programming considering
yeah.
the space and the
Size, yeah,
resources they have to work with. I absolutely love Art Boutique, but
yeah,
it's outside of
totally.
the walking footprint of downtown.
Hmm.
So what I see a lot around here is I see, bars and kind of trendy spots to eat, but there's not a lot of actual entertainment downtown.
Yeah,
Um, and there is an amazing amount of really talented local musicians
yeah,
who have a lot of difficulty making ends meet, certainly off gigs alone. A lot of them
yeah,
are
totally.
educators, and a lot of them have part-time or full-time jobs outside of music. And then it's a passion project for their gigs, which is a real shame. Or they have to move, they have to move
Yeah,
someplace where there is a
a better
better
scene. Yeah,
a better scene, which is
yeah,
most places, if I'm honest,
yeah.
which is sad.
Even smaller cities and communities seem to have a little bit better economic model for
Oh yeah.
starting out musicians. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
lived in
so
Portland for a year a few years ago, and population wise, it's a smaller city than San Jose, but in
yeah,
their downtown area, you got tons of places that feature live music,
yeah,
of all sizes.
yeah,
And I was always really jealous of that, because I
yeah,
even when I was there, I always had an idea of getting back to San Jose. This is definitely where I call home. This is the city that I love the most. But yeah, I'm very literally invested and emotionally invested in trying to make the music scene here as good as it can be. So
yeah.
anyway, we moved into these
Hmm.
offices, and I was really excited about it. I immediately said, "Let's put a stage in the corner."
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah,
was just
yeah.
like, "Pump your brakes." Uh, but
Yeah,
we had a pretty good working relationship with the Knight Foundation for a while. In
yeah,
2019, we did this project called "Do You Know San Jose" that they funded, which is the boombox went around to every single San Jose council district. There's 10 of them. A lot
yeah.
of these areas don't have any live music to speak of. So
Hmm.
working with the council members there to put on at least one show in each district. And overall, the project went really well. But something that I realized is if you want to actually build audiences, you need a consistent
Yeah,
show, and you need it to be in a consistent place.
yeah, yeah. To build that
Yeah,
momentum
yeah,
and
exactly. People need to know
recognition.
that
Yeah,
it's there. Oh, it's Friday. We can go down to blah blah blah, and there's probably some good music. You
yeah,
know, a good template for that, I think, is the Taylor Street Market that they do at Gordon Biersch, which the
yeah,
Boombox is also associated with. At this point, well, as of 2019, which is the last time they did the series, they were getting 1,000 to 1,200
yeah,
people out there
yeah.
every
Which
single
it's
Thursday.
starting up this week, right? The 15th, right? The
The
15th
15th,
show.
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
start back up,
yeah,
and we're going to be back out there again, which I'm really excited about. It's a really
yeah,
great gig for local musicians. You basically have 1,000 people out there most of whom are new ears to the music, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's primarily based around the food culture and the food trucks, but the music is certainly a big aspect of why that series is special.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
so Knight
yeah.
Foundation had you know funded that project, and we went back to them and we said, you know, what we need as an organization, which we've never had, is our own venue. Um, and this office possibly presents an opportunity to do some kind of local grassroots programming.
Yeah.
And we have the technical ability to bring some really cool aspects to the project. So, you know, I worked with Brendan, I worked with Massimo, who's our marketing director, and we just
Mm-hmm.
brainstormed on some stuff that we love out of, you know, the concerts that we've been to over the years, and we said, how can we package this all together in a cohesive, you
Yeah.
know, venue idea? And
Yeah.
so, you know, I did a pitch deck. I drew some drawings to try to bring it to life visually, and we pitched it.
Yeah.
And we pitched it, and then COVID happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, we had to pivot pretty hard, which, you know, pretty much all arts organizations did. And you know, we started doing things online. We did this live from home series,
Yeah.
which was very, very difficult, not only to garner audiences, but there was a lot of education that needed to be done. I had to completely learn how to live stream, which I had never done before,
Oh,
but
okay.
even
Yeah.
get to the point where I needed to educate the artists on how to do
Right.
it themselves, because I couldn't be there. It was all remote, you know. So we were
Yeah.
doing artists that live in Argentina and live in
Yeah.
Florida and New York, and
Yeah.
most of them had never live streamed before either.
Yeah. I've
So,
seen some of those too, and just like there was like audio delay or echoing because
oh yeah.
and it's just the internet quality, and but so you guys, yeah, started building out the break room. Was kind of, I mean, during COVID, kind of made an opportunity to play with that and build it out in a way, right? Or
Yeah, well, um, basically, as the story goes, we hadn't planned on doing any live streaming from the venue to begin with. It was just an
oh, okay,
idea of having, uh,
just a live
yeah,
venue
just
with
just
audience. Yeah,
another live space in the Sofa district. Great positioning in terms of, you know, what Sofa is doing. Another place where, you know, you can park your car and you can walk along First Street, and hopefully you run into some live music. You run into some things, and
yeah,
we could be another aspect of what makes Sofa a cool place to be. Um, and you know, just improving the, you know, the local scene, more gigs for musicians. All that was what we were pitching.
yeah,
But then because of COVID, we started thinking, okay, now we got to integrate live streaming for sure. We have no idea when live audiences are going to come back.
mm-hmm.
So this gives us an opportunity to do the same thing, but for live internet audiences, which is honestly, it is the wave of the future. You know, it's already here, but it's going to become even more as the years go by.
Yeah,
So that the idea became to do a hybrid, you know, between live performance and live streaming.
yeah,
And I got my buddy Oscar Pangolinin
mm-hmm.
involved. I think he's been featured in content at least
Yeah,
once or twice.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He was the content emerging artist from
There you go.
2000 pre-COVID, 2000 pre-COVID.
Yeah. Well, you know, I discovered in COVID times that he's a big nerd and he knows a lot of technical stuff about video and streaming. And he
Oh, cool.
uses a lot of big words with me that I still don't understand. Uh, but I started working with him to kind of build out the idea of what it would take to create a very stable live streaming
Hmm.
content creation studio within the idea of the footprint of this new venue.
Yeah,
And so we worked together, we modified the budget with that in mind. And then finally Knight said, okay, you can have your money.
yeah,
And off we went. And it was kind of similar to when we got the seed funding for the boombox. We immediately started construction. I bought some trusses from a company in the Czech Republic,
oh, right.
and one of our board members, Mike Warner, who is a retired structural engineer, helped me design out the space.
Awesome.
And we put up the trusses, bought some lights,
Yeah.
and got going on the audio visual production side of it. And then the first thing that we did was this New Works Fest, which
Yeah.
took place in, I believe, late. We started doing production on it in like early March,
Hmm.
and then the actual festival appeared in April. And we did 11 shows in here, 11-hour-long sets,
Yeah.
um, with all local artists, but local artists basically at the top of their game. And
Yeah.
and then we released that fest, and got a lot of really amazing positive feedback about the quality of the audio and video that we're able to produce in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that has kind of given us a platform now that things are starting to open up to use this venue, for Summerfest, which is right around the corner. We're only a month away.
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully a fall concert series, and then who knows what 2022 might might throw up. So we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And it is crazy. I mean, like you said, you have the rack with all the lights. I mean, the audio, the visuals. I mean, it really looks great. I'm excited. And
Thanks.
I was over
Thanks.
there the other day. It must have been a Friday or I don't know what, late afternoon or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and you guys were in there. You guys were playing. There was musicians in there playing, and it was like this is
Nice.
so cool. It's like you know what I mean? It was fun to be able to be in the office and not for me to have to go, Alexa, play Chet Baker. You know what I mean? When I had
Sure.
live music
Sure.
going on, it was really cool.
Right there.
I'm really looking forward to having that kind of like vibe in our office and stuff.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. Me too. There's
yeah,
there's a lot of things about the space which have been real pleasant surprises. The actual space sounds good.
yeah, it does. Yeah,
It's relatively tight. You just have just enough of
just a
a room
complete wall
sound.
of glass on this side and
Right, right.
and concrete
Well,
on this side, but otherwise, yeah,
but that's the thing. So when we first moved in, I was like, "Oh man, this is going to be a hard space to control." Just doing the clap test around the room and hearing this kind of between the walls. It's like this is going to be feedback city. But we built one of the things that we did is we built this video wall along the big glass wall, which
yeah.
basically these semi-translucent, opaque curtains, which remotely come down, and we got a
And
couple
is that with the
projectors.
storyboard? Sound like
Yes.
storyboard guys. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
Storyboard designed it. We had the concept. They were kind of our method 42 of the break room. Storyboard
yeah,
was. So we had an idea for this, and they brought it to life, which is a couple projectors that are beaming down onto these opaque curtains that you
yeah,
can see from the inside or the outside, and is about a half-second delay of what's actually going on within the room.
yeah,
So I kind of always envision 70-person capacity in the actual room, which is relatively small, especially if you're talking about a bigger, more established group.
yeah,
Not the easiest to get into, but if you can't get in, you can always hang out on the sidewalk because we got exterior speakers, we got the video wall, and you can see it. Or
yeah,
you can
yeah.
just bust out your phone and some AirPods, and you can listen to the
Live
show
stream.
live that way as well. You
Yeah,
got all sorts of different ways that you can enjoy this show. So
yeah. So if people want to see the space, I mean, Summerfest is definitely going to be the opportunity to get in there, check out the break room, and hear some great music. So
yeah,
what's kind of the plan for Summerfest, and kind of do a quick little overall in general because this year it's a little scaled back than what it's kind of grown to be, and then
yeah.
what's going to be happening in the break room.
Yeah, well, as you said, Summerfest is definitely it's scaled back this year, but I got to say, every day I swear I get an email about a little incremental growth of the festival.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, by the way, we're going to do this now, and we're going to do that now, and then my to-do
Right.
list gets longer and longer.
Yeah.
But I'm concentrating on the break room
Yeah.
for the fest, and we're going to do 3 days of programming in here. We're going to
Cool.
start up 8 p.m. on Friday with a local group. They're definitely one of my favorites over the years. They're called the Future Relics, which has got to be like one of the best band names of all time.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
They're based out of Oakland. They've got a really fantastic lead singer, and some of the best jazz players in the Bay Area are in that group, up and coming jazz players. But it's a funk and soul group with some really excellent production ideas. Just a huge fan of that stuff, a huge believer of what they're going to be doing. So that's going to be
Yeah.
opening up
Cool.
the stage. And, we're kind of going for a younger, more progressive sound. It's got to dip a toe in jazz always,
Yeah.
but from there it can expand into soul and electronic and all sorts of different avenues.
Yeah.
And
So it's kind of like in some ways you did uh, what was the stage called that was on Post Street and Linton?
the Jazz
That was
Beyond stage.
Jazz Beyond. Is it kind of a little bit
Yeah.
more of the Jazz Beyond feel?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Probably, as opposed to Jazz Beyond, it's going to be a little bit more of an emphasis on local bands.
Okay.
And then
Cool.
there's also some bigger bands that are going to be hitting either the main stage or the Hammer Theater. They're going to be doing second sets, like intimate sets in the break room, which
Oh,
I'm really
sweet.
excited about
Yeah,
because,
that's awesome.
budgetary wise, there's no way I could be able to get these groups for one show here. But because
Yeah,
they're already going to be part of the festival, they've agreed to do kind of a second set within the break room for this limited audience.
that's awesome.
Amongst those, we've got Butcher Brown, who is doing the main stage as well. I love them.
Awesome.
Really great instrumental funk group. I believe out of South Carolina. I'm probably getting that wrong, but and then some other ones that we have are Brandon Coleman, who I've been a fan of for for a very long time. He's a keyboardist with the West Coast Get Down, which has
Cool.
Kamasi Washington and others in it. But he's a breakout artist in his own right. So that's going to be great. And then James Francis, who is another piano player who's just a really excellent young player in the New York jazz scene. Worked with some of my favorite artists like Robert Glasper, one of my all-time favorite singers, even though I've only known about her since 2017, which is Yeba. Worked
Hmm.
with her, and so I'm really excited to see him do a set in here. And yeah,
Yeah,
like I said, probably wouldn't be able to get these artists in their own right, except they've
totally.
agreed to do these second sets. So yeah,
So then
really
these
excited.
second sets, I mean, in the space, then is that? I mean, it's going to be if you're part of the package
Yeah.
of then you'll be able to go, or is it's a different exclusive kind of set? I'm just kind of curious because I know some of the stuff you're going to do in there is going to be just open to the public, like not even ticketed. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah,
heard
it's
that.
it's a uh, it's a good point because most of our sets, all of Friday and all of Saturday, are going to be ticketed, and it's a step up above general admission.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason for that is because it's a 70-person capacity venue.
Yeah,
If we
totally.
opened it to everybody, I just feel like there's a possibility we could get completely overwhelmed. There'd be lines around the block, and we'd
Sure.
just be
Yeah,
pissing
and
everybody off.
the fire department will be there in 10
Oh
minutes
yeah,
and shut it all
exactly.
down.
It would be a total nightmare.
Yeah,
So one way we
yeah,
get
makes
around
sense.
that is by making it available to, you got to pay a little bit more if you want to get into this intimate
Yeah,
venue, and hopefully that is a little bit of crowd control.
yeah.
That said, on Sunday, starting at noon, it's going to be free and open to the public for 3 hours because we're going to be doing some really exciting youth programming that I've been wanting to do for a really long time, which is um, the U19s is a band it's the breakout rhythm section from our big bands,
Okay,
and they're a five-piece band: guitar, bass, drums, keys, and Barry sax. And they're from our 2019-2020 group, um,
okay.
and they their chemistry is better than any of the U19's iterations we've had in the past. They're
Huh.
they're extremely motivated. They've become really good friends. They
Cool.
rehearse outside of like normal rehearsal time. They write originals. They do these
Awesome.
crazy arrangements of like Beatles songs and things like that.
Yeah.
Just totally inspiring musicians who have really excellent chemistry. And I
Yeah.
was I was telling everybody, I was like, this U19's group is really special, and I was excited to put in applications for festivals for them and things like that. And then of course COVID.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
2020, 2021, we didn't have a big band because there's no way we could get 20 people together in a room to
Yeah.
rehearse during that time. So I call them like the artists formerly known as the U19s. But they're going to do a set at noon, and they're going to just absolutely kill it, I'm sure. But then after that, starting at 1 and from 1 to 3 p.m., it's going to be an under 21 jam. It's only open to musicians under the age of 21.
Oh, cool.
And the U19s are going to be the house band during that time. So they're going to stay up there whenever there aren't, musicians getting up for the jam. But otherwise, yeah, we're gonna form a registration, and we're gonna get a lot of great young musicians in here. And
Yeah.
of course, we're gonna be live streaming that as well. So this is programming that's not only free and open to the public in person, but you're going to be able to get it over the interwebs as well. And I'm
Yeah.
really hoping that what comes out of this is some great music that these young musicians can use to show as media when they're trying to get gigs and get into
Yeah.
bands in the
Yeah.
future, get into college and that sort of thing. Just show people what they
Yeah.
can do with high fidelity sound and high
Yeah.
fidelity visuals.
I think it is too. It's amazing. I mean, just for folks out there, I mean, you hear like, like high school kids band or whatever, right, might start to make you kind of like cringe a little bit,
Yeah, yeah,
but you know, what you guys do, the program is incredible. The music is like completely professional level. I love it.
yeah,
I mean, like I love the the high school all-star band that you would have like in the park and stuff like that. It was like, it was always so great, And it's fun to see these young musicians and their starting of their career. So I think it's going to be
yeah.
exciting to go by. Yeah.
Yeah, I've obviously been steeped in the educational side of San Jose Jazz and San Jose as a whole through the summer camp as well, for many years. And what I see as the big difference between what these kids are doing and the professional level
Hmm.
doesn't really have to do with technical skills, because some of these kids are just incredible musicians, like better
Yeah.
musicians than I am, honestly.
Yeah.
And what I think they lack is just experience.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
so the idea is just to get them this experience, get them up to that speed as quickly as we possibly can. I think that's the best recipe for success.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've had kids from our high school all-star program go on to some really fantastic universities, NYU, Berkeley School of Music,
Yeah. Yeah.
what have you, and starting to really make a name for themselves in a professional context.
Yeah. It's funny
So
too, because sometimes you think with music, you do kind of think, especially I think with jazz and that. I mean, it seems like it's a, just to sound bad, but an older person's kind of art form.
yeah,
And of course, the school of hard knocks and the training and the experience you get and the wisdom from that, of course, is going to play into it. But when you think about it, if you think about the number of hits and either from all across the genre, it's young folks. I mean, like you
oh
know what
yeah,
I mean? If you take like the Beatles, I mean, right? They were all
yeah,
18 years old when
oh
they're
yeah.
traveling around the world. So it is kind of interesting. So
There is a
cool. So
stereotype
yeah,
that jazz is kind of like an old medium. When people think
yeah,
about jazz, they think about that
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
kind of sound. But like when you go to an Ariana Grande show, all the
yeah,
musicians on the stage, those are jazz musicians.
yeah, totally.
They're the
Yeah,
ones who are developing their chops in the music school, and they're using all those techniques to play this relatively, like, I hate to bag on it, but like dumbed down music. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
pop. Yeah, yeah,
But you get to that stage by exploring the absolute limits of what you can do with
totally.
music, and then
Yeah,
you can scale it back a little bit and play pretty much anything you want. You know, and I
yeah.
just feel
That's
like
what
jazz
I
is the absolute best education for whatever kind of genre you eventually want to go into. It gives you that platform to
yeah.
just excel.
I think that
So
happens once you get into music. I think, if you really start getting into it, you may start with whatever, maybe it's Sex Pistols. You start there,
sure,
but then you
yeah,
start to find out, you investigate not only the instrument, but the influences of those bands. And it starts to take you back to like all kinds of different stuff. And then you start to, wait a second, like, I don't know, Iggy Pop was influenced by Cab Calloway? I mean, like,
Oh yeah, I
I don't know
know,
if that's
right?
true, but you start to, and like, so who's this? And then you start finding out all these kind of great things, and you
Oh
listen
yeah,
to that, and you're like, oh yeah, like it really opens up. Yeah. So is there
yeah.
any other local performers that'll be at the break room?
There are. Let me just quickly bust out my spreadsheet. I can give you a better idea
You should have
of who
everything on the top of your head, right? All the stuff that you're doing.
Well, there's a few
Where's the
that.
Boom Bops going to be on September 15th, 2023?
Yeah, there's a few on this list which I don't want to kind of give away yet,
Oh,
but
surprises,
yeah, hopefully
mystery.
hopefully some surprises. We'll see. But also kind of ongoing negotiations, so I don't want to
Oh, yeah, sure.
muddy the water and say yes, this person is coming. But
Right, yeah.
yeah, amongst the locals, we're going to have Idiot Fish, who is a
Yeah, sure.
local favorite. They're going to follow the Jazz Jam, which I think is kind of a cool crossover because a lot of the musicians in Idiot Fish are some of the educators that are responsible for kind of bringing up this local youth music scene.
Yeah, that's like Wally Schnolly, right? Is
Wally Schnally's group, yeah, but it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like very very progressive. There's a lot of
Yeah.
electronic elements to it. There's some really
Yeah.
really cool sounds that come out of that group. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited about that. And then the Friday programming, I'm imagining there's a few other locals that yeah, I just don't want to throw
Yeah.
out
Okay.
names quite. But Friday is going to be primarily local programming,
Okay.
local killers. So
So everyone should keep their eyes on your social media website for all the latest news. Or
absolutely.
just buy a ticket and you'll know everything, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah. Yeah.
information will come to you. You don't have to worry
Yeah.
about it then.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So, hey, what about for you? So, I mean, you have I'm always kind of curious of people's musical influences. And so you did play
Yeah.
bass. And so for you, like, even like when what was it that sparked you to start playing bass and getting into music? What genre?
Yeah, I mean, I was always very interested in music. My parents are both visual artists. My mom's a painter, a graphic designer. My dad did illustrations for NASA when he was younger.
Cool.
So everything was very visual art, and like I
Mm-hmm.
always had colored pencils and pads everywhere we went as a kid. But I was definitely more into all the drawings I would do was musicians on stages and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
But I kind of had to find my own way into music. I was always like buying and renting my own instruments. I don't think my parents thought that it was going to stick with me for
Hmm.
the entirety of my life.
Yeah.
But I remember very very consciously when I decided that I wanted to play bass, and I was at the Hard Rock Cafe in San Francisco with my dad,
Hmm.
and we were just I was with my dad and my older brother who was at the time already like in his 30s, and they put on this video of Woodstock '94,
Oh,
which
okay.
was had just happened the summer before, and
Hmm.
uh, one of the highlights on there that came on was Primus. And
Okay. Yeah.
if you're familiar with Primus and Les Claypool, it's just the wildest bass playing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I was just like my jaw was on the floor, and I said, I want to do that. That
Yeah.
is what I
Okay.
want to do. So yeah, I bought a bass, and of course you run into that trap immediately, trying to learn all the hardest stuff you possibly
Sure.
can. It's so disheartening, but I eventually found my way at it, and exactly what you said with like you were talking about Iggy Pop's influences. I started going down the rabbit hole of the influences of Primus,
Yeah.
which are all over the place.
Yeah. You
And
bet.
that definitely, I found out about Stanley Clark, who's, one of my bass heroes
Hmm.
through Primus. They did a Stanley Clark cover. You
Oh,
know, I
wow. That's
got
awesome.
I got really into Peter Gabriel through
Oh, okay.
Primus, and a lot of and I also got really into funk and soul music because
Yeah.
the Meters, for instance, um, all of these different groups, which you wouldn't expect to be a Primus influence, ended up being really strong Primus. And so I just got more and more down the rabbit hole, and learning all these different things. And, my mom was a huge fan of Motown as a kid. So Motown was just always playing. Stevie Wonder was always on, so I went really deep into that kind of when I got a little bit older, because that music is just so refined. And again, it's all these incredible jazz musicians who are making that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously music school after that, and then off I went. So,
that's great.
I mean, I would definitely say Primus got me going, but nowadays I would say, in my top 5, I guess, Stevie Wonder is probably number one. I think there's a lot of musicians who would say Stevie Wonder is number one. So one of my friends described Stevie Wonder as your musician's friend's favorite musician.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I think that rings true. But yeah, desert island kind of stuff. Like Radiohead, definitely up there. The Beatles, certainly like way up there. There's a jazz fusion group that is near and dear to my heart called Mahavishnu Orchestra, which is a little bit more obscure, but it's John McLaughlin on guitar, who was, Miles Davis's guitarist for Bitches Brew. This incredible drummer, still my favorite drummer of all time, probably Billy Cobham on drums. And the music that they made was out of control, wild music. So, just in my iTunes, listen count, Mahavishnu Orchestra is always way up there. So
yeah, that's cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. And then, so then are you doing some break room stuff before the fest?
So we're gonna have a few artist rehearsals in here, and then at the same time we're gonna be training crew. So other than that, that's all we're going to do. I mean, it's such a short timeline. And, like I said, I've got so many things going on. I've actually got a grant due today at 9 p.m. that I got to write. Okay. And then I got this series of boombox shows coming up. So the timeline is so short that we're not going to have any shows beforehand. And we're really going to concentrate on Summerfest. And then hopefully from there, we can get a little bit more funding that we can do this fall concert series.
Yeah. Well, it sounds good. Well, definitely then I need to let you go because you got some stuff to do. But yeah, cool. All right. Well, we'll talk to you later, and I'll be seeing you in the break room.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. Thanks.
Talk to you later. To find out more about San Jose Jazz, to purchase tickets for Summerfest, and find out about the Boombox, go to their website, sanjosejazz.org. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Visit our website to become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the local creators. This episode's music is Tang by Chris Inman, who is featured in issue 13.2. Follow him on Spotify at Chris Inman and on Instagram at chris.inman, as well as his record label, Orange Label Records.